who don't know me, I'm Stanley Goodin. I was a longtime friend of Mike's since 1964, which was our freshman year in high school. I am a retired dentist, and now I live in Pueblo, Colorado. So I came a long way to be here, and I wouldn't have missed this. If I'd been in Africa, I would have taken the time, to be honest with you. Mike was that special. If you got to rub elbows with Mike in this life, then you were all lucky people. And so, anyway, I want to take you back just for a couple moments to high school days. In 1964, we started our high school days at Monte Vista High School in Whittier. It was a brand new high school, and I'll tell you honestly, Mike was one of the most popular people in high school. He was absolutely a people magnet. He had charisma galore. He was probably the smartest guy in high school, frankly, and he had a sparkling personality, and as you all know, he was a good-looking young man. So what was not to like? So through his high school career, Mike did a variety of things. He played football for a couple of years. He was in student government for at least 1 year, maybe more. And then senior year, he took on being the editor of our school yearbook. He did a great job. And he had a distinguished academic career. I'd heard several times from people who were in the know that there was nobody at Monte Vista High School. That was a school of 2,000 people. There was nobody that was as intellectually gifted as Michael Scott Savee. Hard to believe, perhaps, but it's true. Perhaps Mike's biggest achievement, though, in high school was not necessarily in the academic arena. Can you guys all hear me okay out there? You need it up closer. You want to hear this? So yeah, I bet. I'm sorry. I'm not very practiced. Mike's biggest achievement was probably meeting a young lady named Loretta Van Tienen, who later, of course, became Loretta Savee and is the mother of John and Greg. So Mike had a well-rounded high school career. He was good in the romantic arena as well as the academic arena. He was truly gifted. After high school, Mike and I kept up our friendship. We did a bunch of stuff. We took supposedly we were supposed to go snorkeling down to Ensenada, but actually we were underage, so we'd go down there and party. And so we did a couple, Southern California kids, that's what we used to do. I don't know if do they still do that? I don't know. So, and then, let's see, what else did we, oh God, we worked a 12-week job. It was probably the most gruesome summer job I ever had, by far. We worked 58 hours a week at an industrial job. So we stuck it out, and we kept encouraging each other to hang in there. That's all we did that summer was just work. And of course, who could pass it up? We were working for the magnificent sum of $2.10 an hour. So 5 10-hour shifts and 1 8 on Saturdays. So the most significant thing I did with Mike in the early post-high school years, though I spent a couple years with him at Long Beach State, and those were great times. We were young and just full of ourselves, of course. But Mike was always a great companion, and he had a '64. I think the Mustang was orange. It was one of the 289 4-on-the-floor type things, and of course, commuting down to Long Beach State with Mike, we were probably the coolest guys at Long Beach State, for sure. Okay. As the years roll by, I'll get into that. We bought houses and got married. And I moved up to Ventura, and so I had to work at keeping my friendship with Mike. And certainly it was an effort that was well worthwhile, I can tell you that. But we got into doing two things on a regular basis. I started participating in Mike's desert camping trips to Joshua Tree national monument, because it was a national monument when we started going out there. And I didn't go out nearly as much as Mike. Had two other very close friends, Stan Krasowski and Bill Brewer, who is sitting right over here to my left. And they must have gone out 100, maybe 100 plus times over the years easily. I went out maybe 15 times. But those were great times. There were four of us out there, and myself, who was kind of the outlier, and then there were the three Los guys. That's what they called themselves. And hanging out with Los guys was really special. Thank you, Bill, for being part of that. Those are wonderful memories. And the level of conversation was high. Those guys are smart. I usually tried to just shut up. But the level of conversation was high. There was a fair amount of partying, of course, always out there, because we were all just letting our hair down and getting out of the city and hanging out with just the best of friends. I want to share a quote with you, and I don't mean to drag this on, but I came across a quote by the great boxer Muhammad Ali. He had this to say about friendship. He said that friendship is the absolutely hardest thing to explain. They do not teach it to us in high school or in college or any time in the educational system. But as you mature and you grow older, if you don't learn about friendship, then you haven't learned anything at all. So hanging out, I always think about that when I think about Los Guys, because Los Guys was really special for me, and I hope for them as well. The other thing I did to continue my friendship with Mike was I made regular visits to 5212 Bixler Avenue. Those visits took place over the last 45 years. I loved seeing Mike in Loretta, and then after Mike and Loretta went their separate ways, I loved spending time with Mike and Andrea. They were just always marvelous times. Great conversation. And hearkening back to what Prima was saying, just sitting on the porch with Mike Savee was reason for celebration. But great music, an occasional cocktail or two, and also great food. I was going to mention the times in the Savee Kitchen were really special. There was part of this video display that showed Mike in the kitchen. I don't know if you guys caught that, but it's really hilarious. I hope they keep playing it. But time in the kitchen with Mike and Andrea was great. That kitchen was small. It was perfect for one person. It was crowded with two, and three was chaos. So my job as the third party was to stay out of the way. And as you can imagine, I was good at it. So I would just sit there and watch Mike and Andrea do their kitchen dance. And they were very graceful. You know, even with Parkinson's disease, Mike Savee, he could focus, he was intent. He was really a good cook, plain and simple. And they never had a mishap. You know, they'd pirouette around each other, and it was fun to watch. And just a great memory. I'm getting close to the end here, so in case you need to go get a drink or the bathroom, it's coming up soon. Mike had a lot of great qualities. He was not, of course, a perfect man. There are none of those around. But I think one of the things that sometimes is overlooked with Mike was, I think his whole life, he had probably the sunniest disposition I've ever encountered. He was gregarious to the max. He was exuberant about life. The French have a term for this. It's called joie de vivre. It's the joy of life. And Mike just had that in spades. I think, as a matter of fact, that joy of living and of life put him in good stead when he had to deal with Parkinson's. You know, that was a 15-year battle for Mike. And in all my visits with him, I never thought really, Mike changed subtly, I'm sure. Andrea could address that much better than myself. But when I saw Mike, he didn't change much. He that life force that he had was so great that he just got on with life, even with Parkinson's. So, good example for us all as we face aging processes. I kept coming back to the thought in thinking about my life and times with Mike, really, kept coming back to the thought about just how lucky I was to have Mike Savee as a good and dear friend. And it feels good to have been so lucky. And I mentioned this before, but I think all of you here that got to spend time with Mike in this short lifetime that we live, I think we were all really lucky, because he was a special guy indeed. And I'm not saying that just because we were high school buds. I got to observe Mike so many times. He was a class act. So anyway, Mike has left the stage, obviously, and so my life is a little bit lesser, and some of yours are as well. So where do we go? Well, we try to remember Mike with joy and with love and with grace and with the great respect that he deserves. And I'll leave you, my closing remark is a Jewish proverb that I came across. It's short, sweet, and I think it's elegant. And it goes like this: say not in grief and tears that he is gone, but live in thankfulness and joy that he was. There you go.
Yeah.
I wish he could join us too. So, to a full and rich life, to a life well lived, to a guy who is a great father and a loving husband, and certainly a wonderful friend. And I bet there's a lot of people here who can testify to the fact that he was an exceptional teacher. Here's to Mike.